It's a warm autumn afternoon on Friday, September 22nd, 2006, and 16-year-olds Cassie Jo Stoddart and Matt Beckham are being dropped off at a secluded house on Whispering Hills Drive in Pocatello, Idaho. Cassie's mother, Anna Stoddart, has just picked up the teens from Pocatello High School and is dropping them off at the house because her daughter is set to house sit there for her aunt and uncle while they take a weekend vacation. Her aunt and uncle had 2 dogs and 3 cats, so they needed someone to stay at the house for the whole time they were gone. And their responsible niece, Cassie, was the perfect person for the job. Anna drops the 2 teens off at the house, and Matt assures her that his mother is coming to pick him up later that evening. Matt and Cassie were the perfect high school couple in 2006. They were both attractive and popular, Matt tall with a winning smile, and Cassie with her long brown hair and sweet personality. Matt and Cassie sit in the living room watching TV for a while, and then their 2 friends, 16-year-olds Tori Adamcik and Brian Draper, stop by to hang out with them for a bit. In typical teenage fashion, when the 2 boys arrive and see that Cassie has this whole house to herself, they suggest having a party. But like I said, Cassie was responsible, and she shut down that idea right away. The 4 of them settle in the living room to watch a movie instead. Midway through the film, Brian and Tori leave, claiming they are bored. With the other 2 gone, Matt and Cassie snuggle up and continue to watch the movie. By the time the movie is almost finished, Matt and Cassie start to hear strange noises coming from the basement, muffled bangs and thumps. The 2 pause the movie and listen. But they don't go to investigate because, as any horror movie watcher knows, you never investigate the strange noise coming from the basement. Matt and Cassie write the noises off as old plumbing or ventilation in the house and continue to watch their movie. That's when, suddenly, all of the power in the house goes off, plunging the couple into complete darkness. Now Matt and Cassie are officially freaked out. They hear the 3 dogs barking at something in the other room, so the 2 of them slowly get up and see what has upset the dogs. Standing near the doorway that leads to the basement stairs are all 3 dogs, staring into the descending darkness and growling at seemingly nothing. Officially feeling like she's in a real-life horror movie, Cassie's heart is racing, and she begs Matt to stay with her in the house for the rest of the night because she's terrified. Matt calls his mom to ask if he can stay, but remember, they are 16-year-olds in a house all on their own, so his mother says no. But she can tell the kids are freaked out, so she offers to have Cassie spend the night at their house. Now, like I said, Cassie was a responsible girl, and she had promised her aunt and uncle that she would take care of their house and their pets while they were away. So she decides to stay by herself. Around 10:30 p.m., Matt's mother picks him up, and they both wave goodbye to Cassie. 2 days later, on September 24th, 2006, Cassie's aunt, uncle, and their 13-year-old daughter arrive home from their weekend trip. A few seconds after they enter their house, the following 911 call comes into the Pocatello police station.
Emergency 911?
I need an ambulance out of my house. Yeah.
Okay, what's going on?
Somebody looks dead on my car. I just got back from Wyoming. Oh my God, it's my cousin's daughter. I need an ambulance now.
So somebody's where?
She's on my floor.
Ma'am, don't yell. I can't hear you when you do that. Let me get you order medical. Stay on the line.
On the floor of their living room was their niece, lying in a pool of her own blood. This is the murder of Cassie Jo Stoddart. Hi, strangers. This is your host, Alexa Morrissey, and if you're like me, in addition to true crime, you love horror movies. I think it's the adrenaline rush I get from watching horrific things happen, all while being completely safe in my own home, And I think as women, we live in this constant fear of something violent or horrible happening to us. And it's almost like I can process those feelings through horror movies, because despite the violence that has happened on screen, there is usually a blood-soaked final girl still standing. She's been through a lot, but we know she's gonna survive. Unfortunately, in real life, our beloved female leads don't usually survive horrific things. What happened to Cassie Jo Stoddart is horrendous, because in the minutes leading up to her murder, she was living a real-life horror movie. And we will see that her terror is part of what excited her sadistic killers. Lock your doors and listen closely. This is Stranger in the House. Cassie Jo Stoddart was born on December 21st, 1989. She had two siblings, Christy, who was 6 years older, and Andrew, who was 8 months younger. According to an interview with the Associated Press, Andrew says that Cassie was the most headstrong out of the three. Quote, "Me and her were always into the same stuff and going to the same places," he said. "We did everything together, even though we would argue and stuff, just like any other sibling. I felt like I was always a step behind her, looking up to her. She really was a role model. She was really smart, doing good, and had a lot going for her. Cassie was a good student. She was artistic and responsible. She wasn't into drugs or drinking, which is why her aunt and uncle asked her to house sit for them in the first place." When police arrive at the scene, they find Cassie lying in the living room, and they can see that she's been stabbed several times. The medical examiner later confirmed that the cause of death was the multiple stab wounds to her torso. Cassie had about 30 stab wounds, and about 12 of those could possibly have been fatal. The medical examiner also said that 2 different knives were used in her attack, and they put her time of death 2 days before she was found. There were no signs of forced entry, which means that the killer came in through an unlocked door, or Cassie had let her killer in. Police needed to know everything about Cassie's life and who she would let into her aunt and uncle's house. So they went to the place Cassie spent most of her time, Pocatello High School. In interviews with her friends and classmates, the police found out that Cassie was dating Matt Beckham and that she had invited him to come hang out with her while she house sat Friday after school. And there were some rumors circulating that Cassie was pregnant when she died. With Matt being at the scene of the crime the night of Cassie's murder, and the possibility of a secret teen pregnancy, police knew that they had to take Matt in for questioning. Like Cassie, Matt was 16 years old, so his mother stayed in the interrogation room with him while police conducted their questioning. Right away, Matt denies that Cassie was pregnant. He was adamant that those were just dumb high school rumors. As he's talking to police, though, they find it suspicious that Matt doesn't seem all that upset about his recent girlfriend's death. He's chatty and smiling as police question him.
You don't seem too busted up about this thing. You know what I mean? Quite frankly, I gotta be honest. I think it's different. I'm experiencing some different things, but again, if those things that we can explain that.
Right.
From the outset, you gotta understand how other people see it.
Right, I understand that.
You know what I mean?
It's just like how I've always...
most people say this. Most people say, "God, my girlfriend got killed, man. I don't think I'd come out of the house. I think I'd be a basket case."
Right.
And they don't understand that. And I'm not saying that that's wrong because you're acting this way. I'm just saying that it's the way that you are,
right.
And that you help us understand.
Well, like,
what's going on there.
I've had, like, there's been, like, so many deaths in our family, like, her dad died, her brother died, her this died. We just went to a funeral like a month ago. My uncle, he died, and I've just been to like so many funerals and like stuff like that. Like I'm like kind of used to death. It sucks. Like I'm like only like 15 years old, and I'm like almost like used to death happening, and like I know like the funerals when it's like really gonna hit me.
Matt tells police that Cassie had invited him to hang out with her that night, and they arrived together at her aunt and uncle's house. He told police that he and Cassie had also invited their 2 friends from school, Tori Adamcik and Brian Draper, to come over, and they arrived a little after him. He tells police how the 2 friends left after about 2 hours, all the weird things that happened before he left, and when his mom picked him up. After his mom picked him up, he actually called Brian and Tori to see what they were up to and if they wanted to hang out more, but they had actually gone to the movies and were already in the theater. Matt said after that, he went home, he watched some TV, and then went to bed. When police are questioning a person of interest, they want details. They don't want to know, oh, I watched TV when I got home and then I went to bed. They want to know, what show did you watch? What was the episode about? Did your parents see you watching this show? What time did you turn off the TV? What did you do in the time between shutting the TV off and laying in bed? These details are important. They help police determine if the person is being truthful and if their alibi makes sense. So police keep pushing Matt for more and more details about the night. They tell him that when they were investigating the house, they actually found 4 popsicle sticks in the kitchen garbage. They ask him if the 4 teens had popsicles at one point that night. They need to iron out these details. So Matt says yes, at some point, they were all in the kitchen eating popsicles. When police ask what they were talking about in the kitchen, Matt tells them something that makes the investigators in the room perk up. He says that when they were in the kitchen, he pulled out a giant knife from the silverware drawer to show Tori and Brian. When police ask why he did this, he said it was just a crazy-sized knife and he thought they would think it was cool. The 2 investigators in the room start to grab more pens and paper and ask Matt to start drawing the layout of the kitchen and where he pulled the knife from. And that's when Matt's mother, who has been sitting in the room the whole time, stands up.
Matthew, I just found out something that I didn't know, what you just told them. You didn't tell me this about any kind of, you showed them a knife.
It was just like a knife in the drawer.
This is the first time I'm hearing about this.
Because it was just one of those things that didn't really...
That would be a very important thing. You didn't tell me not a word about this. So, this interview is over right now, and, we will get in touch with you. I gotta, figure some things out. Okay? Come on, Matt.
Now, with Matt not talking without a lawyer, police looked to the other 2 boys that were at the house that night with Cassie and Matt, Tori and Brian. Tori and Brian were also 16 years old, and they were not the friends you would imagine picture-perfect Cassie and Matt having. While Cassie and Matt were outgoing and popular, Brian and Tori were more loners and outcasts. They mostly hung out with each other, and apparently they would rather stay home and watch movies than go to high school parties. Police bring in the 2 boys for questioning separately, and they both confirm Matt's story. They went over to hang out with them at Cassie's aunt and uncle's house around 7 p.m. They stayed for a while, they had popsicles, Matt showed them the knife in the kitchen, and then they said they left around 9:30 so that they can make a showing of the movie Pulse at their local theater. They said they talked to some girls from another nearby school before the movie started, and then they left the theater a little before midnight. After these initial interviews, police find out that Cassie was not pregnant when she died, and Matt Beckham's father confirms that when Matt and his mother got home from Cassie's, they watched TV together and then Matt went to bed, like he said. Obviously, his father could be covering for him. But for now, Matt's alibi would do, because police needed to confirm Tori and Brian's alibi about being at the movie theater. And here's the thing. Pocatello, Idaho is a small town. If you live there and go to the local movie theater, you are going to bump into at least one person who would recognize you. But after questioning the staff at the theater, police find that not one person could place Brian or Tori at the theater that night. And instead, they are told by a neighbor of Cassie's aunt and uncle that a car that very much resembled Tori's was seen in the area long after the 2 allegedly left to see the movie. Police are ready to bring in Tori and Brian again for questioning, but before they do, they go and see the movie Pulse in the theater so that they can question the 2 boys about the plot of the movie. Because sure, no one saw them there, right? But maybe that was just a fluke and they really were there that night. Well, when police bring in Tori and Brian for their second round of interviews, neither of them can recall what happened in the movie they allegedly saw that past weekend. Not one major plot point, which is especially odd because these 2 boys are self-proclaimed movie buffs. Police tell the boys that they know they didn't go to the movies that night, and that someone in the area placed their car near Cassie's aunt and uncle's house after they had supposedly left. Again, the boys are being questioned separately, but they both eventually crack and tell the police, okay, we didn't go to the movie that night. According to them, they actually drove around the neighborhood, checking parked cars in the area for unlocked doors so that they could steal from them. Police asked the boys if they check the cars in the area, will they find Brian and Tori's fingerprints on the door handles? And they both say no, but for different reasons. One says they used their sleeves to open the car doors, and the other says they wore gloves. The next day, Brian Draper arrives at the police station with his parents. In the interrogation video, Brian is deeply upset and stuttering as he tells police that he and Tori only wanted to scare Cassie that night. The two boys loved horror movies, and they wanted to play a prank on Cassie and Matt. According to Brian, while they were all hanging out and watching TV, he snuck away at one point and went into the basement to unlock the side door so that they could return in secret later on. After they left the house around 9 p.m., the two boys went to Tori's car and changed into dark clothes and white masks with red paint dripping from their eyes and mouth. They then snuck back into the house through the unlocked door in the basement. Brian says they made loud noises in order to lure Matt and Cassie down to the basement. But when the two never came down, they found the circuit breaker and turned all the power in the house off. Brian says that they waited for a while in the dark, and then they walked up the stairs to where they thought Cassie and Matt were going to be. Brian says that yes, they had knives with them, but they were supposed to be just props to round out their costumes. He says that when they found Cassie alone upstairs in the dark, Tori lunged for her and began to actually stab her. Brian, through tears, says that killing her was never their intention, but Tori just went berserk. Brian says that after Tori stabbed Cassie multiple times, the pair of them ran back to Tori's car and drove to the Black Rock Canyon, which is about 20 minutes south of the house. It was there that they buried their masks, clothes, and weapons. The next morning, police descend on Black Rock Canyon. Led by Brian's description, they uncover the masks and the murder weapon. But strangely, they also discover something else that Brian never mentioned: a videotape. When police arrive back at the station, they clean the dirt off the tape and insert it into the VCR. What plays on that TV would change everything these cops knew about Cassie Jo's murder. The tape starts, and the footage appears to be taken by Brian, who is filming the inside halls of the Pocatello High School. It's a typical American high school hallway: beige paint, shiny floors, and long blue lockers lining the walls. In the video, a few teens are seen wandering the hallways, and then we see the camera get closer to a beautiful girl putting her books into her locker. She looks shyly at the camera, and we realize it's Cassie, at school the morning before she was murdered. From behind the camera, we hear Brian ask her to say hi, and she quietly does, although she appears uncomfortable being filmed. Soon, the camera cuts, and we see a completely different scene. It's dark, and Brian is filming in the front seat of Tori's car. The two teens begin to talk, and the police that are watching suddenly realize that Cassie's death was 100% not an accident resulting from a prank. I'm going to play parts of this tape now, but be warned that what these two talk about while driving around is extremely disturbing.
For all you FBI agents watching this, you weren't quick enough.
You weren't quick enough, and you weren't smart enough. And we're going over today to Nixon's house. We're gonna go snoop around over there and try to see if she's home alone or not. And if she's home alone, splat! She did.
Don't put your humor into this, Brian.
I'm not putting any humor into it. We're gonna go to the church over there, and we're gonna call a girl and a guy named Cassie and Matt. They're our friends, but we have to make sacrifices. So, I feel tonight it is the night, and I feel really weird. It's not my stomach and stuff, and I feel like I want to kill somebody. I know that's not normal, but what the hell?
I feel we need to break away from normal life.
How bright is this light?
Because let's put it this way. Parents, along with their parents, and so on, taught them about God, Jesus, the whole bullshit line. I'm sure you guys believe in God as well.
Yep.
Trying to get people to do good, or else, so-called, you go to hell.
And we're obviously going to hell if it's real, but you know what? Who gives a shit? Our first victim is going to be Cassie Stoddart and her friends.
God, turn your brights off,
Well,
asshole!
yeah, we'll find out if she has friends over. She's going to be alone in a big, dark house out in the middle of nowhere. How perfect can you get? I mean, like, holy shit, dude.
I'm horny just thinking about it.
Hell yeah. We're gonna go down in history. We're gonna be just like Scream, except real life terms. We're gonna be murderers.
Good, baby.
Like, let's see, Ted Bundy, like the Hillside Strangler, the Zodiac Killer.
Those people are more amateurs compared to what we're gonna be.
The tape cuts and then starts back up again.
Just killed Cassie. We just left her house. This is not a fucking joke.
I'm shaking.
I stabbed her in the throat and I saw her lifeless body just disappear. Dude, I just killed Cassie.
The tape proves to police that Cassie Jo Stoddart was Tori and Brian's target that night, and they went to the house with the intention of scaring her, putting her through hell, and then killing her. It was never a prank. These boys wanted to be killers. And this tape shows that they didn't even want to get away with it. They wanted to be infamous for what they did to Cassie and what they were planning to do to others. After police watched the tape, Brian Draper and Tori Adamcik were arrested and charged with first-degree murder. When police went through the boys' bedroom and lockers, they found large collections of horror movies and posters. They also found a piece of paper that was labeled Death List. And this list had several classmates' names on it, including Cassie's. The transcript of the tape was read aloud in court during both their trials, and proved to the jury that not only did they intend to kill Cassie, but they had absolutely no remorse afterwards. Matt Beckham, Cassie's boyfriend, eventually took a polygraph test and passed with flying colors. He was in no way involved in Cassie's murder, and it is believed that if his mother had not come and picked him up, he also may have been a victim that night. In the spring of 2007, both Brian and Tori received life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an extra 30 years to life for the conspiracy to commit murder. I want to be clear about something. Horror movies do not cause murders. Sick people do. These boys saw fame and attention when they imagined themselves as killers. Years later, Brian Draper would say that he regrets what he did to Cassie, and that he, quote, felt like a nobody and felt like he'd be a somebody if he did something big and bad. Brian and Tori have appealed their cases multiple times, but have since been denied. My only hope is that they stay in prison for the rest of their sorry lives for what they did to Cassie. Because not only did they murder her, but they made her live through an absolutely terrifying ordeal before they did so. I like to imagine that in an alternate universe, Cassie Jo Stoddart is a final girl. She defeats Brian and Tori and leaves that house. And sure, she's covered in blood and exhausted, like so many movie heroines before her, but she survives. Stay safe, strangers, and thanks for listening. This episode was written by Alexa Morrissey. Stranger in the House is a Boy Wonder production. All of our sources will be listed in the show notes.